For nearly 80 years, the global rules written in 1945 held the world together. But look at the growing divide between the wealthy global north and developing economies of the south, and you can see that structure is splintering. One side of this geopolitical divide operates on a me-first paradigm. The United States continues to rely on military dominance and hegemonic rulemaking to maintain its international position. On the other side, China pursues a me-only strategy. They build influence through strategic financial reliance and massive infrastructure projects that often coerce developing nations into alignment. India is stepping into this vacuum with massive internal goals. The country is racing toward a self-imposed deadline to become the world's third-largest economy, aiming for a $30 trillion GDP and a per capita income of $20,000. To reach those economic targets, India is deploying a new grand strategy. This is a research paper from the International Journal of Law, Management, and Humanities. Right here in the abstract, it outlines ultra-soft power, the capacity to sway other nations through balanced, cooperative tactics instead of direct conflict. Rather than copying the coercive models of the West or the East, India is excavating its own ancient civilization for answers. They are pulling intellectual knowledge intrinsic to their history and transplanting it onto a modern state. The intellectual foundation of this strategy rests on a concept found in ancient Indian texts, like the Maha Upanishad, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Translated, it means the world is one family. This philosophy treats all living beings as interdependent. It promotes a borderless sense of unity and universal brotherhood, arguing that nations share common goals and should prioritize mutual support over competition. This ties into the imagery of India acting as a Vishva guru, or a teacher to the world. Instead of forcing compliance through coercive power, India positions itself as a normative guide, a mentor offering a collaborative path forward. Applying these ancient values reframes how statecraft actually works. Foreign policy stops being a zero-sum game of global dominance and becomes a journey of shared developmental responsibility. You can see this strategy playing out inside multilateral groups like BRICS. This academic analysis highlights how India uses the framework not just for economic coordination, but to project moral authority, shaping international norms through civilizational diplomacy. We can also see this in their infrastructure approach. This next page points out India's interactions with the New Development Bank. They emphasize non-hegemonic development cooperation, focusing on local capacity building and human-centric growth, rather than using financial power to influence politics. Take a look at this image from the vaccine nitrate program. By supplying millions of doses and emergency medical relief to developing nations during the pandemic, India provided tangible evidence of its humanitarian priorities. They are applying the same principle to technology. Here we see a standard UPI payment scan. India is actively exporting this kind of successful global digital public infrastructure, offering a ready-made digital model for developing economies. By sharing critical medical resources and proven technology without attaching predatory debt traps, India is successfully building South-South solidarity, cooperating for mutual benefit. This approach reached the highest levels of international governance during India's 2023 G20 presidency. As you can see in this summit photo, they placed the English translation of their ancient philosophy right in front of world leaders. One Earth, one family, one future. They used that platform to amplify the voice of the Global South. For example, India strongly supported and secured the admission of the African Union, represented by this flag, as a permanent member of the G20. They also drove consensus in the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration, securing commitments from major economies to implement sustainable energy transitions and launch the Global Biofuel Alliance. The summit proved that ancient statecraft can act as an effective contemporary leadership model to address modern food, energy, and economic instability. Global Bharat is not a charity mission. It is a calculated grand strategy designed to secure India's national interests while lifting the rest of the world. This isn't a rejection of hard power. By bridging the West and the Global South, Bharat secures the strategic alliances and economic resources it needs to defend its own security and fuel its rise to the top 3 global economies. Now they are pushing this framework toward its next evolutionary step. Grounded in the ancient concept of dharma, the balanced pursuit of peace and prosperity, India is trying to move international policy past strict human-centric development and toward planet-centric harmony that defends all life and environments. By proving that a nation can defend its borders and grow its GDP while upholding the welfare of the entire planet, the Bharat Consensus is building a new kind of world order, one where global leadership is measured by how well a nation fosters oneness.